name's Ray Sorensen, R-A-Y-S-O-R-E-N-S-E-N. Everybody always misspells it. And then everybody calls me Bubba. It's just a nickname I've had ever since I was a baby. My dad thought I was a fat kid, so he started calling me Bubba, and just name stuck. So in 1999, I started painting a large boulder outside of my hometown of Greenfield, and I had just seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, and so I wanted to say thank you to our veterans, and that rock got graffitied a lot, and so I thought, I'm going to put a thank you to our veterans. I'm going to paint the flag raising at Iwo Jima. Thank you, veterans, for our freedom. And I did that, and like I said, it was graffiti rock, so it ended up getting painted over, and the local veterans asked if I'd do that again, and they meant to do the same thing, but I was an art student at Iowa State, and so I thought, well, I'm going to take it a step farther. I'm going to paint something different. And then just kind of snowballed into this annual tradition to where now it's, my rock now, and I've painted it for the past 17 years, something different for Memorial Day, thanking our veterans. And that one's my gift to veterans. So in the course of that, my wife and I started a photography and painting studio, and I started a mural painting business within that studio and started going around and painting murals and stuff like that. And I noticed a lot of people wanted me to paint small rocks or anything to do with rocks because of the Freedom Rock. So an idea started forming in my head. I started thinking about going around and just painting for American Legions or doing this, doing that. And then I had the idea to try and put a Freedom Rock in all 50 states. And I thought, I better scale that back a little bit. I go, how about a rock in all of Iowa's 99 counties? And so that's how the Freedom Rock Tour was born. I announced it, and I think it was the fall of 2012. And I thought my goal would be to book like 10 rocks, 10, 15 rocks, something like that in the first year and get started. I booked 10 rocks within the first week of announcing, and then I booked 60 counties within the first year. And so I knew Iowa was excited. I was excited to get started, and here I am on just started the fourth year of the tour, and this will be the 42nd rock that I've completed, and I hope to be done with the entire tour within the next probably 4 years. I always say every Iowa community is the same, but a little bit different, because there's just the same mentality, that same Iowa nice, but there's always the little different quirks and things that make that town different. I just this winter announced the 50-state tour. I announced it not really to start it necessarily, but just to start the conversation. I want those rocks to be bigger, and I'm going to kind of limit it to 2 per state. So obviously I won't do one in every county in the country, but it'll be more like, just whoever contacts. It can be a small town, it could be a big city. But I would like to try and, the goal would be at least 1 in all 50 states. I didn't want to go into a town and say, or a county and say, listen, you're going to have a Freedom Rock and it's going to sit here. I wanted people to say, we want a Freedom Rock. So it's completely open to whoever wants to fill out the application and go forward with the costs of having one installed. And so I don't choose. Everybody's like, why did you put it in such a tiny town, or this and that, or why did you put it here? Our town's better. And I just wanted to remove myself from that completely and be like, you know what? Let's just let them choose. First one to do it gets it, as long as they can afford it and meet my criteria. That'll be fine. I kind of hold what I consider veto power over the content. I want people to, give me ideas and, show me what they want on the rock, but I also want them to understand that it's in large part, you're a puzzle piece to a 99-piece puzzle. I want to be able to say, we've already done that. I don't want to do it again. I want to dig deeper, tell individual stories, and not, everybody so badly wants to say, I just want to thank all veterans and keep it just simple. And I'm like, those memorials are out there all over the place. It's been done. I want to, do it something different, tell history, illustrate stories, show what uniforms looked like, things like that, kind of dig deep into it. So we're not just doing names inscribed on a rock, this is means something more. I just have suggestions. I always say it's better on private property, not city-owned property, but I have them on both. City-owned property, they fall to, well, like, I don't know if you know the story about Knoxville. some guy put up a cross. You know, you fall into stuff like that, where if it's on private property, can't say anything, you know. It's you get a little bit more leadway. You can put a little bit more stuff on. You don't have to worry about the stuff that, you know, Knoxville had to worry about, unfortunately. And but that, again, that's just a suggestion. It's not a guideline. My guidelines come more to artwork. Like, I don't like to repeat things. So if one guy's been on a rock already, I don't want to put him on, you know, 6 or 7 rocks across the state. It's, you know, I want to kind of divvy it out equally. I don't like to tell so broad of story. I like to get a little bit more specific, and that is such an arm wrestling deal. I kind of usually end up giving a little bit. I tell a broad story on one side, and then I get specific on other sides. Some counties like this county are a lot more willing to work with me and find the specific stories. Like, each one that's represented on this rock is a specific individual from a different era. I liked how they did it and how they presented the stories, so I didn't really change much other than I come up with the design. You know, everybody's like, well, who designs it? I do. I'm the artist. I'm not looking at you to design something for me. Just give me the ideas. I get really excited. I love that when rocks come from their actual county too. So, you know, there's that old geology history, you know, on display. And then I like to talk about local veterans, you know, that they don't have to be anybody necessarily that are, you know, earned medals or have done anything, you know, super, you know, valor wise, you know, Medal of Honor or anything like that. I mean, I love telling those stories, but it's really just, let's tell some stories. Let's just tell some veteran stories. Like I said, everybody's always so worried about being PC, and, you know, we can't just single out one veteran to tell their story because there's other veterans. Absolutely, there's other veterans. But why do we have to squash all the stories just because we can't think? You know, I always say I drape an American flag over most of my works, and that to me is my thank you to all veterans. So then from there, I just like to tell stories. When I go to the 50-state tour, it's going to follow the same general guidelines. It's just it's moving to the country instead of just the state. And, you know, what I want it to be is it's going to cost them a little bit more because obviously I'm going to have to travel to, you know, like let's just say Hawaii. You know, that one's going to be one of the more expensive ones, Alaska, because just travel alone is going to be a little bit more expensive. But, you know, yeah, I want them to be a little bit grander, a little bigger. You know, if you're going to travel through states to look at these, you know, I don't want them to go visit one that's this size. You know, I want them to have to look up at it, you know, and spend a little bit more time on it. You know, whereas I can complete these in around a week, I want these to take more like 2 weeks, you know. So I just kind of double everything and just get a little bit bigger. And that's why I realized once I get done with the state of Iowa, it's the state or the nationwide thing's going to be a lot slower progressing. You know, first of all, it's going to take a while for them to find out about it, and it's going to take a while for them to get, you know, funds like that available and to understand it and things like that. So that's why I wanted to go ahead and announce it now, so that by the time I'm done with the tour, maybe we've booked a few states, maybe we've done some, I can maybe put out a book about the 99 county tour thing, you know, and then at the end of it explain the nationwide tour and, you know, just kind of push it further along, then rather than wait to the very end and then expect people to just know about it. I've got a website and a social media presence, and so people are able to reach me and reach out and, you know, tell me what they think about the rocks and, you know, what they would change or what they do different. A lot of people always point out certain things that they think I haven't done. And I always laugh because they obviously haven't done their research. Like, people are like, you should put women on the rock. You've never done that. Like, oh, but you need to take a different look. And I'll make images of just screenshots of different women that I've put on the rock and things like that. Or you should I haven't seen a tank on the rock. And then I've put tanks on. You know, not that I've covered every single facet of service because there's so many, but I've covered a lot. And so a lot of people will say, you should do this. And I already have. I cover as much as I possibly can. I mean, you know, certain battles have been covered. Yeah, obviously World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, you know, Spanish American I've done. Trying to think of uniforms that Civil War. You try and cover all of it because once you start a project like this, you need that material anyway. And it's interesting to people that have even the slightest bit of interest in history, you know, especially being able to tie it to Iowa. We don't have a lot of Revolutionary War veterans, but we do have towns and places that are named after Revolutionary War heroes and Mexican-American War heroes and things like that. So maybe we weren't quite involved yet. I think our involvement mostly consists from Civil War on up. But we still have ties to it by naming our towns and counties and stuff like that after it. What I do is contact them about a week before I'm scheduled to show up. I don't like them sending a ton of ideas to her ahead of time because I have to keep each one straight. And if I start receiving ideas from all over the state, then they start getting, mixed. And so I kind of try and keep them organized that way. And then I get their ideas. Some people send packets and packets of information. Some people email just a couple off-the-wall ideas, and that's it. So I take those, I set them aside. I do my own research on that county, town, everything, my own, and then I group them together. I look through it, I see what I think will work, and then I start sketching it out. And then I just, I do a few sketches to myself, and then I do basically one round of sketches for them, because otherwise you can get lost in nitpicking the crap out of it, and I don't want to do that because it's, it's meant to be fairly quick. And then I send them to them, and they'll make their corrections, and what I do is I don't make the corrections in sketches, I make the corrections on the rock. So if you're like, well, I don't like this ship with this guy, let's put this ship in. I'm like, oh, that's great, we can do that, but I'm not gonna re-sketch it. I use a special kind of paint called a silicate. Everybody's like, is that acrylic or is it oil? It's neither. There's no organic material in it. You don't use water to thin it. It was invented by a German in the late 1800s, and some of his murals still look good today, and he painted them over 100 years ago. So this isn't bulletproof by any means. I don't suspect that, a lot of the rocks, especially the top part of them, will last over 100 years, because it's just weather. But the paint company is pretty steadfast in standing behind their 30 years plus. So I know a lot of them will get 30 years plus. But, bad hailstorms, a tree branch falls on it, things like that. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not bulletproof. It's weatherproof. It won't fade. You'll see a lot of murals where the reds have turned pink and the blues have washed away, and that doesn't happen to this paint. That's one of the beauties of it. So even as it may chip away, via hail or, something like that, it'll still retain a lot of its color, which I love. Serving, sacrificing, those are two big, words I like to define without words, I guess. I define with illustrations and pictures, and hopefully I'm getting that across, Whereas, you see someone who has served and you just see their name inscribed on a wall, you're like, oh, well, that's nice, that's their name. But when you see their picture, you see their eyes, you see maybe the background of what they were serving in, and their uniforms, and I feel like that maybe brings a little bit more emotion to the table, and maybe inspires a little bit of patriotism, I hope, I guess is the goal. Educate and inspire and that type of thing. I think that's most artists' goal. Patriotism, like the price of gas, kind of fluctuates, but I think there's always those hardened patriots and those people that love their country and love where they came from, no matter what. Obviously our veterans, they're not going to lose patriotism. It's pretty hard for them to. They've put their life on the line to protect what we're about, and people like me, people that are involved with our veterans, people that work in VAs or veterans homes, I feel like they have, a sense of patriotism. When people talk about patriotism to me, I'm not talking about just blindly saluting the flag of a government. I'm talking about loving your country, your fellow man, your brother and sister in arms, that type of thing. That's kind of patriotism to me. Understanding what these different eras have done, whether in the government's eyes it was right or wrong, or they did something right or wrong. I'm talking about at the basis level, the blue collar folks of America, that type of thing. That's more of what patriotism means to me, and I love our flag, but I don't love our flag because of the cloth that it is. I love our flag for what it represents, what the Union represents, what the stars and stripes represent. And I feel like sometimes patriotism can either be made fun of or looked down upon, or oh, it's just a hunky America, that type of thing, and I dislike that view of it. But it's free speech. You can take it and take it for what it is, and some people are going to look at my artwork and love it, and some people are going to be like, oh, that's just corny Americana. Hey, go look at something else.